Going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Kev and Steve. So what's up, Kev?
What's going on, listeners out there? Happy to be live with you today.
I hear that. I'm not going to get into politics on the show, but I hear that. All right, guys. So today we are going over our Week 7 waiver wire pickups, drops, ads, waiver wires, stuff. We're going to do buy and sells for today. And we're going to go over some guys that we like you guys to pick up and some guys that, we think it's about time to drop, give up on. So, with that being said, I'm going to pull up my little sheet here. And I'm going to go over some guys real quick. I want to do a little thing at the beginning of the show, actually. I want to go over some injuries. I wrote down some injuries that are, of note that everybody should know. Everybody knows about Aaron Rodgers and what happened there. Unfortunately, he's out for the season. I'm just going to go over real quick the list of injuries that happened this weekend and, what we think. So, Robert Turbin looked like he had an elbow injury. Right now, he's listed as questionable. We got Rob Kelly with an... Go ahead, Kev.
Robert Turbin, I think Pagano said he's out for the year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Pagano. I saw Adam Schefter put out a tweet saying Pagano said that he might be out for the year. So, Robert Turbin should not be around for the rest of this season.
Yeah, that stinks.
Not really.
Yeah, it does help out other guys. We feel bad for Robert Turbin, but it does help out Marlon Mack and Frank Gore, I guess. We got Rob Kelly, who's got an ankle. He's questionable this week. Got Leonard Fournette, questionable, but likely to play. We got Wendell Smallwood with a knee. They did say he is probably going to play this week. For wide receivers, we had Emmanuel Sanders. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks with an ankle injury. We got Tyler Boyd out with a knee. He's going to probably miss this week. Golden Tate, shoulder, may miss a few weeks. We're not sure exactly how long. It's his bye week this week, so we'll see how that goes and progresses next week. We got Corey Davis with a hamstring. They're actually saying that Corey Davis might come back this week, so if he's on your waiver wire, maybe somebody to pick up. Demaryius Thomas, lower leg. They did say that he's probably going to play this week, but he's listed. We got Devontae Parker with an ankle. He's most likely out this week again, they're saying, but check in later on in the week to find out. We got John Ross out with a knee. We got Jordan Matthews still, they're saying day to day now with the thumb. We got Kenny Britt with a knee. And then the big note, Aaron Rodgers having surgery on his collarbone, out for the season. Teddy Bridgewater, actually, they're saying that if not this week, next week, he might be coming back. So that might be somebody to check out.
Very coincidental that happens as soon as they say Sam Bradford's career might be over. So it's very coincidental.
Exactly. So, Jameis Winston, he got throwing, his shoulder, his throwing shoulder. He had an injury to it. They didn't really say what it was. I think they said something about the AC joint injury, but they didn't really go into it, much of it after that. So that he's on a questionable tag right now. Trevor Siemian also with the shoulder. Sam Bradford out with the knee. Everybody knows about Charles Clay. If anybody has Dustin Hopkins from the Redskins, he is out, I think, for the season. I think he got put on IR. Yeah, so, check out who they picked up if you need a kicker. Josh Lambo was signed by the Jaguars because Jason Myers got released after missing 2 of those field goals this week. And that's about it, guys. So, everybody else basically on here is, Paul Perkins, Bilal Powell, Rex Burkhead, Charkandrick West, Terrence West, Bashar Perriman, Jeremy Maclin, Kenny Galladay, Michael Floyd, Stephon Diggs, and Sterling Shepard. We'll know later on in the week all of those guys, whether they're going to play this week or not. So right now we're just mentioning them and let you know they're hurt.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we're going to get into our lists here. So, Kev, who do you like this week? Who do you like picking up off the waiver wire this week?
Well, first off, let me say this. I've gone through a lot of the waiver wire additions. I'm not overly thrilled with anyone.
Yes, I agree.
right off the bat, I'll say that. It's not, to me, this week isn't really a week where you're going to, be using a lot of your fab money.
I hear that.
Obviously, if you have an if you own Aaron Rodgers, most people, if you own Aaron Rodgers, you're not really rostering two quarterbacks, or at least you shouldn't be rostering two quarterbacks at that point. But I guess if we're going to get into, we'll go through the quarterback waiver wire a little bit first. If I had to pick a guy under 50%, I'm looking at. I probably would go Andy Dalton. He's been very up and down this year, way more down than up. But I just think that he's been a guy that's done it before, and he's been a little consistent in his career than a lot of these other guys that are on the waiver wire at quarterback. Quarterback's not really going to be a position where you can hit the waiver wire late in the season and think that you're going to get the same production as a guy like Aaron Rodgers is going to give you. It's just not going to happen. It kind of sucks because you probably took Rodgers in the second or third round, and drafts. If you miss on drafts in the first and second round, they can kill your team. You may not be destroyed if you got a quarterback in the 8th or ninth round, but grabbing a quarterback in the second round, if he gets hurt, that could just kill your season. So, hopefully you drafted well in the rest of all the other rounds. But, me personally, like I said, I would go Andy Dalton off of the quarterback waiver wire. He's 30.9% owned right now, so he's well under 50%. He's got a number one wide receiver in A.J. Green out there, of course, that, gives him a very prime target. I like his weapons out of the backfield. I think Joe Mixon is going to start to pick it up now that they're down in their bye week. Hopefully they kind of kick Jeremy Hill to the curb and just kind of go with Mixon and Bernard. And, I think those two weapons out of the backfield kind of give Dalton a little bit of a dump down, a little more of a check down game. I think Tyler Croft now being inserted into the tight end position. Not really looking around for Tyler Eifert. I mean, Tyler Croft has actually not been bad. I mean, he hasn't been great, but he's provided a little weapon in the middle of the field. So if I had to go with a quarterback to replace Aaron Rodgers, it's not the greatest selection, but I'd go with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I agree with that. Me and Kev talked about it. We talked about some of the quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor and, some of the other guys that are available this week. And it seems that, to me, Andy Dalton's probably the best available. The problem is Tyrod Taylor just doesn't have the weapons on his team, to really make him fantasy, relevant. He runs the ball. So if you're in a 4-point for passing touchdown league, I might take a chance on Tyrod with his running ability. But, honestly, other than that, I think I'm going to stick with, Andy Dalton this week. Trevor Siemian has the shoulder injury that we just mentioned. So
and he's missing Emmanuel Sanders. He's lost one of his weapons as well.
Yeah, yep. So, it is what it is, guys. The waiver, like we said, this waiver wire this week is kind of rough. So
especially, quarterback's always going to be rough. We might as well just bring it up, Steve. Brett Hundley. If you want to take a shot on Brett Hundley to replace Rodgers, it's not, we watched the game. Me and Steve talked about it earlier. He didn't look very good. Now he didn't practice with the ones and all that. So maybe he's able to develop a little chemistry this week with practice, and he does have a good matchup against the Saints. But if you want to take a gamble and pick up Huntley and throw him out there, own your own team. But like we said, that wasn't. He just didn't look good out there. He had a lot of overthrows. A lot of definitely had a few turnovers. But at the same time, I think going forward, Huntley may get you a little more rushing too. Yeah. So that might be something you want to look at. But overall, I still say just go with Dalton. He's probably a little bit more safe.
I hear that. The only other quarterback I really want to talk about for me is Brian Hoyer. Only because Brian Hoyer this week, if you lost Aaron Rodgers and you don't want to lose another big piece to your team, so you kind of want to stream quarterbacks. The way I would do it personally is find the matchups that I like, guys playing in matchups that I like. So Brian Hoyer this week playing up against Dallas. Dallas does score points. They don't have Zeke, or they may not have Zeke. We still don't know. We still don't know what's going on there. But
we'll get into that.
Exactly. So, I'm actually keeping an eye on it at, it's 7:40 right now. I've been keeping an eye on it just in case we get something, over the announcement while we're on the air, to let you guys know. But, so Brian Hoyer this week playing up against Dallas. I still think Dallas is a potent offense. They can score points, and San Fran might need to throw the ball to stay in this game. But Dallas the problem with Dallas, is they give up points on the ground and in the air. So you don't really know. It could be a Carlos Hyde day. It could be a Brian Hoyer day. But if I'm going to play the matchups.
Hey, Steve, real quick.
Yep.
CJ Beathard was actually named their starting quarterback.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm sorry. Yeah, I actually did. Yeah, I did note that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. But yeah, like I said, with the matchups, you want to look at the matchups. So I like the guys playing up against Dallas, and the other real quick other guy that I might start this week is Jared Goff. We saw Arizona, really put up some points last week, especially with AP, which we're going to get into. So, Jared Goff might be a flyer if he's available in your league.
Yeah, definitely. If Jared Goff's available, I would say actually pick him up and just make him your starter, because actually they've been scoring a lot of points in themselves, So
yeah,
you always want to be with offense and scoring a lot of points.
I hear that.
The Rams have seemed to have been doing that this year.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, so we'll go to running backs. You got anybody, Kev?
We'll just get into the Dallas guys since we brought up Zeke.
Yeah.
Me personally, I think McFadden is going to be the guy. I just think Alfred Morris's role stays the same, and they just insert McFadden. We saw McFadden 2 years ago rush for over 1,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's been made clear yet, so it's kind of just a subject out there in the middle of the air, because it's. They haven't said whether McFadden or Morris will get the start and what the workload will look like. But me personally, I would pick McFadden up before Morris, just because I think McFadden would overtake that role. I think they've just been healthy scratching him just in case they needed him. So me personally, I would take McFadden.
Yeah.
But this is the same thing. It's what me and Steve just talked about. You also have to watch, because Ezekiel Elliott is not necessarily officially done for 6 games. There's still a fight going on, and something could break in this week that could, change your thought process on this.
Yeah.
But me personally, I would go with McFadden over Morris. I don't know how you feel, Steve.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything that I've been reading and just watching the way last year played out, when basically, if you watched, Zeke was Zeke was healthy last year. In the last game, if you guys remember, against the Eagles, Week 17, I know, Morris was in there, and Darren McFadden was a healthy scratch for most of the season, but that last game, McFadden took over the carries. You know what I mean? And then in the preseason, all this preseason, McFadden took all the carries. He worked with the first team. He was the guy that, they seemed to rely on. Morris did get some carries, but, for me, I do think it would be more of a 65-35 split in McFadden's favor.
That's a good percentage. That's probably a good breakdown.
Yeah, so that's kind of the way I feel it'll work itself out. That's kind of what we think, and it seems to be a little bit consensus that McFadden is going to be the guy.
Yeah, just remember to pay attention this week. You don't want to go out and make McFadden your number one waiver claim, and then Zeke turns around and is playing for the rest of the year. It's definitely something that could turn around and happen. So.
Exactly. If you're spending fab money on him, if he's available, I'll tell you guys the percentages so you kind of know what's going on. But looking at both of them, they're both less than 60%. So You are available in some leagues. They may not be available in yours, but that's for me. That's even better for you guys, honestly. If you don't, if you're not, because we're not 100% sure. Nobody's 100% sure. If anybody says, if anybody comes out and tells you, oh, McFadden is getting 80% of the carries and we know it and blah blah, they're just lying to you. So, at this point, if they're picked up, good. If they're not, spend some money on them. Don't spend a whole lot. 10%. 15% tops.
Exactly.
All right, so guys that I do want to get into is Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls. Another situation that we're not 100% sure on. In the last game, Eddie Lacy had 9 carries for 19 yards.
It looked terrible.
Yes, and looked really bad. So, like I said, we're not 100% sure, but I do think with that production, you got to kind of see what Rawls can do because Eddie Lacy just doesn't have it anymore. He looked fat and slow again, like always. So, for me, I would rather have Rawls, and Rawls is only 24.9% owned. So, if I can get him, I think I might take a chance on that and see what happens, Either one of these guys, I don't know if I'm happy about, though.
Yeah, I agree, though. I think Thomas Rawls is actually going to be a good football player. He's got to be healthy. I mean, if he's not 100% healthy, he's not going to be, he's not going to be as productive, and they're not going to give him all the workload. It does seem like Seattle's trying to incorporate like a little bit of a passing down back in there too. So it's not like Rawls is coming in there to do a 3-down back roll. So, I definitely think he's better of the two.
Yep.
And if I was picking one of them up, I would. But I would also, that's one I probably would maybe stay away from because I'm not sure how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I agree. So the next guy I want to talk about is Marlon Mack. Me and Kev kind of hit on him a little bit, talking about the injury, the season-ending injury to what's his name? Blah blah blah.
Robert Turbin.
Yeah, Robert Turbin. So, Marlon Mack. If you guys watched the game last night, he had his very first carry of the game. I want to say it went for 18 yards.
Yeah, it was close to 20.
Yeah, and he looked explosive, and then they just didn't give him any more carries. So, regardless,
I think they gave him one more carry. He lost like 4 or 5 yards, and then after that, it was like, what happened?
Exactly, he just completely went away from him. Yep, and for me, I still kind of want Marlon Mack because he looks like the best back there. I love Frank Gore. I'm a big Frank Gore fan. But he just doesn't have the, he has the quickness still. It looks like he gets to the holes quick, but he just doesn't have the speed to get outside and do all that. If you notice, all his runs are basically inside runs. He just doesn't have that speed anymore, and for me, I think Marlon Mack will eventually start getting more and more carries as the season progresses. So you might as well get him now before he starts to blow up later.
I was going to say, he definitely should. The Colts, who knows what will happen in that division and, when Andrew Luck gets back. But, I think the Colts kind of got to start playing to see what some of these guys got. They're not winning games now. They're going to, when Luck does get back, it looks like they're going to be 2 or 3 games behind the 8 ball. And like I said, I think they got to start seeing what some of these guys have, as opposed to relying on Frank Gore, who's a dinosaur out there. They gotta switch something up and just, like I said, see what their other options are.
I hear that. I agree. No, yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Okay. A guy I was going to get into a little bit was Chris Ivory. I talked about Chris Ivory, I think, a little bit after week 1. Fournette is going to play. So, they said he would have came back in the game if it was, if the game was in question. So Fournette is going to play. But, the injury was scary. His whole body went one way, and it seemed like his knee just either stayed the same or went the other way. But, I think Chris Ivory, I talked about it in week 1. Like he had a little fresh. He was really fresh after week 1. Since then, he hasn't looked great, but I think he would be a solid replacement. Definitely not going to give you the production Fournette would get if if he was to go down. But I think if you're a Fournette owner, you definitely have to grab Ivory because I think that he would be a good handcuff. Like I said, I think he's going to fill in nicely if Fournette does go down. And if, what we saw the other day it was just scary. It definitely looked scary because he went down. He didn't want to get up. He was limping, buckled to the ground. And, like I said, I think that Chris Ivory is probably a really good handcuff to have behind Fournette. I wouldn't really pick him up if I owned anybody else, or if I, didn't own Fournette, I should say. But Chris Ivory be a good handcuff for Fournette.
Yeah, I agree. If you are a Leonard Fournette owner like myself, you definitely need Chris Ivory. Unfortunately, I play in a 12-team league with 9 bench spots, so he's not available in my league. But, it is one of those things where if you have him, you definitely want to handcuff him after watching that injury last week. If that didn't make you nervous, then I don't know what does. Especially with the way the guy's been playing. The guy's just, I told everybody in the beginning of the season that I love this kid. He reminded me of Bo Jackson with his, just being huge and his, and he's just stupid fast. If you guys, just to get some metrics on this kid, he weighs 250 pounds basically, and he ran the fastest time clocked in the NFL. For any
21 point something miles per hour.
Yes, I mean that is just that's literally Bo Jackson. That's
that's nuts. That is nuts. That is a freight train. That's not a freight train. That's a New Jersey Transit. You're getting ran over, man.
Yeah, that guy is just an animal. I love him. So definitely want to handcuff him. So I want to bring this up, Kev, because I think this is a guy we both want to talk about. It's not a waiver wire guy, but I just happened to pass through his stats. And Adrian Peterson.
We did talk about him last week. So,
yes.
If you didn't go out and try to pick him up, you're obviously looking like a fool right now.
Yes. I'm sorry. Adrian Peterson is exactly what me and Kev said. They weren't giving him any carries in New Orleans, and when he got the opportunity, he played like Adrian Peterson.
Dude, it was unbelievable. I loved it.
I loved every second of it. And, so what I want to say is, if you didn't get him, haha. but in that same breath, I also want to rub in the wound a little bit and let you listen to these matchups coming up. If you can trade for Adrian Peterson, I highly recommend you do so. Maybe the guy, the person that you're talking to thinks, hey, this guy is, maybe he, he's a one-hit wonder. He's not going to do it again. Okay? Listen to these matchups. He plays against the Rams. We all saw what Leonard Fournette did. He's got a bye week. Then he plays against San Francisco. Seattle's a tough matchup, right? But he doesn't have to. Then he goes into Houston with a bang. Everybody in there's hurt. He's got Jacksonville, which we saw what what's his name did to him yesterday. What's his name? Todd Gurley did to them yesterday. Yep. Todd Gurley did to them yesterday. He gets the Rams again. He's got Tennessee, Washington, and the Giants in the playoffs, fellas. Ladies and gentlemen. Tennessee, Washington, and the Giants in the playoffs.
That is great. That is a great matchup going forward. They're great matchups going forward for him. I'll tell you that.
That is beautiful.
One of my friends told me this, and, I was a little shaky in the beginning of the year, but I got to admit, with the trade now, Adrian Peterson might win some people some leagues.
You're not lying. You are not lying. If you guys can go get him. That's all I can tell you.
Definitely.
That's all I can tell you.
We'll be trading him after watching that, but definitely.
Hey, you know how it is in fantasy football, Kev. Some people see those things and they're like, "Oh, that was just one time. That's a one-time deal. He's never going to do that again." And guess what? He's Adrian Peterson. I'll never count him out. This is a man who came off of a season-ending knee surgery an ACL tear, and the very next year ran for 2,000 yards. So it is what it is. I want him. I want him all day.
Nothing more needs to be said. I mean, I think we talked about a lot last week. Last week we were saying, go get him.
Yep.
My feeling was kind of that, AP would go there, and I kind of felt like this would be them shutting down David Johnson for the year. Steve didn't think so as much, but if AP's going to look like that, I mean, they may not need David Johnson to come back, to be honest. If he does, God, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch right there.
You are not lying. You are not lying. That would be scary for any team.
Yeah. Especially, it seems like Carson Palmer looked like he got his rhythm a little bit. Fitzgerald was catching a lot of passes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think it was with that team, man. They needed a run game to kind of open up the pass game.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely, it definitely looked like a completely different offense.
Yep.
All
right. I guess another guy I would talk about, we saw him Sunday night, is Orleans Darkwa.
Oh, real quick, Kev, real quick. I have to interrupt you. Guys, Ezekiel Elliott will play Week 7. The court ruling just came out. He's been granted another temporary restraint order and will be allowed to play Week 7. So if you have him, start him.
There you go. So, and that also means do not waste any money on Darren McFadden yet. Do not waste your money yet.
Yeah.
So there it is. I'm glad that came through. We can, kind of put the kibosh on the whole Cowboy running back situation that we just talked about.
I hear that.
So going into it, we'll go into Orleans Darkwa a little bit. Me personally, kind of just not interested in the Giants running back. He had a good game. He had a very good game, very solid. For some reason, the Giants just look better now that their team is depleted.
It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it literally don't make any sense.
The only thing I can say is the two guys that are done for the year, both are drama queen crybabies.
It's true.
Maybe it's just a drama free. I mean, they also suspended Dominique Cromartie for the game. He's coming back next week, but maybe it was a little another drama situation. It just seemed like they went in this game and said, we're cutting the drama out of our team, and we're going to go in and just, go in and try to beat one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best. And they did it. They really went ground and pound. They just handed the ball to Darkwa. 21 carries for 117 yards. I mean, you did not see that coming.
No.
But me personally, like I said, I think this is kind of a mirage. The Giants have never been a strong running team since Tiki Barber's been there, and their line is not built to run the ball this way. If you go out and get Orleans Darkwa, there's a good chance you're going to be regretting that pickup to me, because I think after this game, he's going to be nothing more than 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
I agree.
Because that's what he's been his whole career. This was, like I said, this was a mirage. I think Denver just came in and kind of just took the Giants lately, like this was going to be an easy win, and the Giants had a little fire under them. And like I said on the show the other day when we did the FanDuel tips, I wanted the Giants defense just as it was kind of just a shot in the dark, because they had something else to do, but if they're going to win games, the defense had to win it, so it's kind of a shot in the dark, and it paid off.
Yeah.
But all in all, this isn't something that I think is going to be sustainable. It's just like I said, he's a guy on the waiver wire that just happens a week. Me personally, I'm not really interested in it.
I hear you. If you have a bunch of injuries and you need somebody, I'm not going to tell you 100% I'm happy with that pickup, but if you need somebody, he's filler. let's put it that way. I hear that. So, the last running back that I really want to get into, that I'm really excited about after watching the New England Jets game, Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis is only owned in 6.6% of Yahoo leagues. of ESPN leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we and Kevin been basically telling you guys that Gillislee is not a good football player from beginning. Like I thought Mike Gillislee was basically going to be in the LeGarrette Blunt role, and that is not the case now. If you watch that game, Dion Lewis had the 2-yard rushing touchdown. They gave him the ball last week on the goal line. He scored last week also. So if Mike Gillislee is not getting goal line touches, he is literally worthless to your team. Like,
exactly.
And to me, Dion Lewis looks really, really good. He's hitting holes. He's making guys miss in the hole. He's super elusive, and we all know that from 2 years ago watching him play. He was just super awesome, and then he got hurt. So I do think they're going to still limit his carries because they know how good he is. So they're not going to give him 20 carries because they don't want him to get hurt. But if they're going to give him 10 to 15 carries a game, like kind of what 15 touches a game, kind of like what they've been doing, he's definitely somebody that I want on my team. So if you can get him, get him.
I somewhat agree. I think that, like I've always said, if you can go out and grab guys off good offenses, they're definitely always a good play because teams like the Patriots and the Saints, they're going to put up a lot of points. There's a good chance that their players can put up points. The New England running back is just such a mystery because, right now, there's a stat here. 18 rushes for 105 yards and a touchdown over the last 2 games for Dion Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
That could turn around and become Rex Burkhead's role next week. It's just how the Patriots play. Dion Lewis is definitely somebody you can take a flyer on. He's definitely, 2 years ago, he literally was a monster until he tore his ACL. He was a beast.
Mm-hmm.
But, he's definitely a good football player, so he's definitely a good guy to take the flyer on. It's just, it's such a shot in the dark because of the Patriots running back system.
I hear that. So is there anybody else you want to talk about, Kev? There's not really anybody on here that I'm really interested in talking about, so we can move on to wide receivers?
Let me see. Let me go through here. No, not really. I'll just say Alex Collins. We've been talking about him the last 2 weeks. He's still only 29.2% owned.
Yeah.
So, go get him. If he's still in your waiver wire, he needs to be picked up. This is probably just proof that too many people just dish out and bail on leagues when their teams aren't good. But, Alex Collins should be definitely picked up because he's taking over the workload as like the first and second down running back in Baltimore.
I hear that.
And we've been talking about him, so there's nothing really more to get into with that.
I hear that. Okay, so for me, the first wide receiver I want to talk to is 49.5% owned is Dante Moncrief. If you guys watched that Monday night game, he started to get some targets. He dropped a terrible touchdown pass. Which, that was crazy. He should have caught that. It was a beautiful throw, like right up the middle. That it was just amazing. He should have caught it. And his stat line would have been, his stat line he finished it was 5 for 67, I believe. Yeah, 5 for 67. That probably would have given him, I think it would have been like a 12-yard touchdown, so that probably would have been almost 80 yards in a touchdown. So he would have had 6 for 80 in a touch, which is a really good fantasy day. We know Andrew Luck is coming back. They're saying they're targeting the first week in November, which would be week 9 against Houston. So for me, Andrew Luck seems to love Dante Moncrief in the red zone. So if that's going to be the case when Luck comes back, you might as well try to get him now before Luck comes back and really starts throwing him the ball in the red zone. This guy starts scoring touchdowns. So I'd rather just pick him up now.
Yes. Luck's red zone. Red zone monster. That's what he does in the red zone. He looks for Dante Moncrief.
Exactly. So
I think Dante Moncrief literally had a touchdown in 6 of the last 8 games last year because I had him on my team, and he literally, it would be 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. He just literally would catch touchdowns.
Yeah. So if you can get him now, might as well get him now before Luck comes back, and then everybody's running to go get him.
Yeah, I agree. I like Moncrief. He's a touchdown machine. I definitely like Moncrief.
Yeah.
The guy I guess I'll get into is one of my boys, man, Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar is the slot receiver for Philly. Jordan Matthews has kind of really succeeded in the last couple of years in that role. And it looks like Nelson Aguilar is kind of filling in and doing a damn good job of it. What's going on with the Eagles and how defenses seem to be playing them is they seem to be doubling Alshon Jeffrey a lot. And that's opening up the middle of the field. I think I heard the interview of Carson Wentz the Thursday Night Football. He literally said this. He said that, Jeffrey's getting doubled and it's opening up the middle of the field for guys like Ertz and Aguilar. And now Aguilar now has 4 touchdowns on the year. He's not getting a lot of not getting a lot of catches. I think in this game, last week it was 4 for 93. This week it was 4 for 55 and a touchdown. But especially in standard, I mean, we really talk about PPR more, but especially in standard, I think Nelson Aguilar is definitely a guy you need to add and should be owned in every league because if he's scoring touchdowns at the rate that he is right now, and he's, like I said, that middle of the field is wide open for the Eagles because Jeffrey is getting so much attention on the outside. Mm-hmm. So I think Nelson Aguilar has to be a guy you can pick up.
I agree. We actually had a trade in our league that was just kind of crazy. With Nelson Aguilar and I believe who was the running back? LeGarrette Blount. I like those guys. The problem with, I like Blount. Blount is definitely starting to become a number 2 running back, a low end number 2. But the only problem I have with Nelson Aguilar, definitely if you need to pick him up, you need wide receiver help. He's definitely somebody to go after. He's scoring touchdowns, but he's not getting the targets. He's targeted about 4 or 5 times a game. He has a really good catch rate. His catch rate is about, whatever, I think it's like 79% or something like that, which is really good in the NFL. So, he's catching what's thrown to him. So, if they start upticking that, those targets, then he could be, a good number 3 or a flex option,
Very true. Very true. Definitely. And I think he is a flex option in standard leagues because, like I said, he's scoring touchdowns.
Exactly. So the next guy I want to get into is Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju actually is having a not so bad season. He's starting to get more targets. He's basically had at least 3 catches in every game except 1 since he's become a starter, and that's since week 2. It's kind of the same thing as Nelson Aguilar. He has 2 touchdowns. He's starting to play a lot more snaps. Martavius Bryant, we all know, is the victim of Juju Smith-Schuster. And
it seems to be that way.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what.
Hold on real quick, Steve. It's actually funny because when the Steelers drafted Juju, Martavius Bryant and Sandy Coates had a little war between each other saying that Juju was coming for both of their jobs. Yeah. And, Martavius was like, no, he's coming for your job. And Sandy was like, no, he's coming for your job. Well, it seems like he's taking over both of their jobs.
Yeah, you're not lying.
Kind of funny.
Yeah, he's definitely, watching him on film, what I really like about him is he doesn't go down on first contact. He reminds me kind of Pierre Garçon, a player that, when he gets hit, he's fighting to try to get more yards. He's not going to go down on first contact. He just, he wants to fight for those extra yards. And for me, those are the kind of guys that I like. So, as the season progresses, I just see him getting more and more targets. And I kind of like the matchups coming up. And the Patriots have a lot of home games coming. I mean, the Steelers have a lot of home games coming up. They play at home this week against Cincy. They play in Detroit, which we've seen what Detroit has looked like the past couple of weeks, so that matchup scares me not at all. They got a bye week. Then they're playing against Indy at Indianapolis, but then they have Tennessee at home, Green Bay at home, Cincinnati in Cincinnati. Then they have Baltimore at home, New England at home, and Houston in Houston to finish out the season. So, all beatable matchup. There's not really any matchup there that really scares me. We saw what they did to Baltimore a couple of weeks ago. He had a touchdown in that game. So somebody that I'm looking at, and I think I'm adding in a lot of leagues actually.
Yeah, I agree. I like Juju a lot. I liked him last year. I was, my dad is a huge Penn State fan, and that Penn State USC bowl game last year was an extraordinary freaking game to watch.
Yeah.
And Juju opened my eyes a little bit. And I was a typical Eagle fan that's not big on USC receivers because of Nelson Aguilar and other guys.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously Nelson's proven that he can play, and Juju's proven that he can play. I like Juju. I think that Juju is definitely somebody you want to add if he's available in your league.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely do that if you need wide receiver help.
Let me ask you this, Steve. What do you think is going to go on with Martavis Bryant?
I'll tell you what. There was a report out there. They were talking about him asking for a trade. He shot that down and said that it was not true. But honestly, the way Juju is playing, I could definitely see Juju getting more playing time instead of less. And if anybody's going to be hurt by that, it's going to be Martavius. So,
do you think that Martavius gets traded this year?
I think it's a possibility I definitely think it's a possibility if Eli Rogers starts playing good. Because if Eli Rogers starts playing good in the slot, then I don't really think there's, too big of a role for him because, Antonio Brown is such a threat all around, you know what I mean? And I think the only problem is I don't know, what the market will be for him because he's not playing that well, you know what I mean? So I don't think they'll get rid of him because I don't know, what they're going to get in return. If they can get, a third round or better, a third round pick or, maybe like a fourth and a sixth, I could see them doing it. But, other than that, I don't know if they're going to trade him.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I don't know if they could trade him. Trades in the NFL are just so up and down. But, who knows? I mean, like you said, we just saw Adrian Peterson get traded. Martavis Bryant, if he goes to a pretty relevant team, he could be a nice guy that can wind up getting a lot of production later on in the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I'm kind of done with wide receivers. I only really had Nelson, man. Anybody else I kind of was not really thrilled with. I know you had brought up Benny Fowler. I don't know if you want to get into.
Yeah, I'm actually that's my last receiver for this week. Like we said, guys, it's kind of dry. Benny Fowler, though, if you're just looking at his stats for the year, he's really had his best game was actually week 1 against the Chargers. He had 3 for 21 and 2 touchdowns. Since then, he had 1 for 8 against Dallas. He was 4 for 55 against Buffalo. He was 2 for 35 against Oakland. Then he had the bye week. Then he was 3 for 21 against the Giants. He's going to take over Emmanuel Sanders' role in that offense. And the next 3 matchups I kind of like. He's playing against the problem is they're all away games. But he's playing against the Chargers. He's playing against Kansas City, and he's playing against Philly. And then he's got New England after that. So this is basically matchup. Kind
of a matchup play.
Exactly. It's a matchup play for the next 4 weeks. If Emmanuel Sanders, let's say he misses the next 3 weeks, I really like those matchups. I like the Chargers, I like the Kansas City Chiefs, and I like the Eagles. And these are all teams that can score points. So, I feel like the Broncos are going to have to throw the ball. So I like Benny.
I agree. I'm not, like I said, I'm not really huge on Benny Fowler, but they will have to throw the ball, and if Emmanuel Sanders is out, Benny Fowler will get his production will definitely go up. We saw in the first game that he's definitely a good red zone target. So, we'll see on that one and see how that one goes. For me personally, he's not really a guy I would add, but to each his own, and like I always say again, own your own team.
Exactly, guys.
How about tight ends, Steve? Did you want to get in anybody? I'll say this: the tight ends that I see here on the waiver wire, is fine. I'm not really big on.
Yeah.
I know Austin Hooper got a lot of targets with Sanu being out. But to me, he's still just a guy. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, tight end was a wasteland, but I'm neither one of those guys, Kittle or Hooper, are really a guy that I'm really that thrilled with.
No, I hear that. I agree. Really, honestly, the only guy that I'm starting to like a little bit is Zach Miller. Zach Miller's only 25.2% owned with the rookie quarterback. We all saw the touchdown he threw to Miller in the corner of the end zone on Thursday night. And I kind of like him. So, if you need a tight end, I would recommend Zach Miller. We saw what Jack Doyle did last night. Jack Doyle actually should have had a bigger game if it wasn't for the fumble. But when Andrew Luck comes back last year, everybody remembers Jack Doyle did have a pretty good rapport with Luck. So, maybe somebody to think about if you need one. And the last tight end I'm actually going to talk about is it's actually, who do I have written down here? Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen was on short-term IR. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. So with him being on short-term IR, he got hurt in the Bills game. So if you count, 8 games from then, it's basically his bye week in week 11. When he comes back, he'll have the Jets, New Orleans, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Tampa Bay to finish the season. Really, the only matchup that I'm scared of there is Minnesota. So if you're a lucky enough league member that has an IR spot and Greg Olsen was dropped, I think you might want to think about picking him up within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because, like I said, he'll be back by week 11. His bye is week 11. So, week 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, he's got really good matchups, and, you'll have him for playoff time.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Greg Olsen got hurt and was not put on that person's IR, I definitely totally agree. Go get Greg Olsen and try to stash him, especially if you have an IR slot. Because, like we said, tight end is such a hard position to really predict right now. There's so many guys like Jordan Reed. I was so high on him last week, and he just goes out and puts up a dud to me, this week. Guys like Tyler Eifert get hurt. Guys like, it's such an unpredictable position, it seems like right now. And Greg Olsen literally has been the most consistent tight end, pretty much in the last, 70 years. I mean, Greg Olsen has never missed a game until this year. And, I think when he comes back, especially with Carolina actually in the hunt, I think when he comes back, he's going to be a very productive player.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. So that's basically what I have for tight ends. Like we said, guys, it's not really, a super deep tight end this year, guys going off. So it's kind of up in the air with that. So, real quick, we don't normally go over defenses, but there are a couple of defenses that were put on waivers last week because guys going on by, the Seattle Seahawks. If they were put on your waiver wire, pick them up. The Buffalo Bills, if they were put on your waiver wire, pick them up. A couple of teams that I actually see. That are less than 50% owned are the Rams. And the Rams have actually been putting up some points this year. I just want to go over their points real quick. This is just basic scoring. They put up 36 week 1. We all know what they did to Indy. It was crazy. And then they had 3 down weeks against Washington, San Francisco, and Dallas. It was 3, 6, and 4. But then against Seattle, a team that you wouldn't really expect them to put up points, they put up 16. And then against Jacksonville this past week, they put up 28. So, I kind of like the production I'm seeing with them. They're starting to get to the quarterback a little bit more than they have been. And, it's a defense with, some really, really good talent in Donald Penn and the linebacking core there. They're a really good defense that I think is now just starting to get a grip on, their season and could be really good. The past 2 games, they've let up 16 and 17 points against Seattle and Jacksonville. They have Arizona coming up. Then they have They have a bye week 8. The Giants, Houston, Minnesota, New Orleans, Arizona, Philly, and Seattle, and Tennessee are the next couple games. So there's really only like 3 bad matchups that I see there. So if you can get the Rams, I would do it.
Yeah, my brother actually just talked to me about the Rams. I don't know if it's our league that he has them in or another league that's been with him, but he said he loves them. Like, he's just been coming through for him, and he's keeping them around. I think it's actually our league, Steve. So, but yeah, it's the Rams defense has definitely been performing. They've been putting up a lot of points, and like you said, they have very good matchups coming up, and the last matchups haven't even seemed like they really have bothered them. So who knows?
I hear that. And the last defense I want to talk about is the Saints. I know this sounds retarded, and everybody's like, "Oh, the Saints defense sucks." But just listen to this real quick. Okay, so week 1, we all saw what happened in Minnesota. Bradford looked like the second coming of Joe Montana. Against New England, they played, Tom Brady and made him look like God. But after that, they've been really freaking good. Against Carolina, they only let up 13 points. They had 3 interceptions on Cam. They scored 22 points. Against Miami, they put up a donut. They didn't score a point. They had 1 interception. They scored 25. And then they had the bye, and then they played Detroit. Detroit put up 32 points, but if you watch that game, there was 2...
That was such a fluky scoring game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And now...
Game. And even still, the Saints defense got all these points because of they had touchdowns and they had ridiculous stats.
They had 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, and 3 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like they seem to be playing very well. So if you're desperate for a defense, if you're somebody who has it's deeper leagues, 14, 16 team leagues, and the Saints are out there, why not just pick them up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why not take a chance? And they're playing very well.
Take a chance.
Yep. So that's basically it for me. You got anybody else you want to talk about, Kev?
Not really.
All right, guys. So that is our podcast for today.
Well, you know what? Before we go into, we didn't really get into any buy highs or sell lows. I don't know if you want to do another show on that, maybe tomorrow, Steve.
Yeah, actually, we can do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. I actually did write down some names. I forgot about that sheet of paper. I have it right here. I actually have 6 names on it. So we will, leave that for tomorrow, guys. And if you guys hit us up tomorrow, and we will catch you, tomorrow night. Just peace out, everybody. All right, everybody. Enjoy your fantasy this weekend. We'll get back to you tomorrow. Peace.
Yeah.